we can continue to do all the great work that we have. And so I'd like to call this meeting to order. And first up, I will have Denise just call on people to do roll call. And of course, just remember, folks, that as you are called on to do roll call, it is important that we state if we're, remote, that we're, where we are in terms of our city, county, and state this afternoon.
Yes.
So, yeah, Denise, if you don't mind starting with the roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Hall?
Yeah, here participating remotely in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Solomon?
Commissioner Solomon, Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, US of A.
Commissioner Keeler?
Ann Arbor, Commissioner Keeler, Ann Arbor, Michigan, from my home.
Thank you. Commissioner Poster? You're muted, Commissioner Poster.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Debbie Poster, from Ann Arbor, Michigan, visiting remotely from my home.
Thank you. Commissioner Mozak?
Yes, hi, Commissioner Mozak, remotely from my home in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And Chair Damon?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you all for being here. I'm Zach Damon. I'm the chairman of the commission. I'm coming to you remotely from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Washtenaw County.
Thank you.
All right. Moving forward, we have the approval of the agenda. So could we just take a couple of minutes? Denise was very gracious to send everyone a copy of the agenda electronically. And of course, as always, folks, if you did not get a copy of the agenda for today's meeting, please let us know and we can get you a copy of the agenda for today. But if we could take just a second to review today's agenda, if there are any corrections or anything that you feel need to be corrected on today's agenda before we motion to approve, please feel free to mention that at this time. Okay, well, with no further comment or corrections to today's agenda, is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll move it.
All right, Tim moves it. Is there a second to approve today's agenda for our meeting?
Commissioner Mozak?
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mozak seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand within the view screen. And if you are in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All right. Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Moving forward, we have the approval of the meeting minutes. And of course, that was from our meeting last month. And of course, if you guys did not get any of those meeting minutes for April, please let us know and we can send you that. But I just wanted to know at this time and give you guys a couple of minutes, were there any corrections to the April meeting minutes? If there were not at this time, I would like to then, is there a motion to approve those April meeting minutes?
I'll move it.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay. So all in favor of approving the April meeting minutes, please raise your hand. And if you can unmute just for a second to say aye, we would appreciate that. Aye.
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 Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right. Now, folks, I am very excited. We have a wonderful guest for our presentations portion. All the guests are always very important, but I'd like to welcome Miss Amber Miller of the Downtown Development Authority. She'll be presenting to us this afternoon, and we definitely do appreciate you, Miss Miller, taking the time to present to us today. So good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us and making time on your agenda today. My name is Amber. I oversee capital projects at the Downtown Development Authority. And with me today are two members of our design team, Bob Doyle and Oliver Kiley from Smith Group. And Bob is going to, I believe, share his screen.
Okay.
And we'll begin the presentation.
Is it possible to see our guests?
Yes.
I don't know protocol. Some of them want us to be off, some
camera.
visible. We're good. So, hello.
Yeah.
We won't crack the lens, guys. We promise, right?
Okay.
No, but we might. Well, thanks, as Amber said, thanks for taking the time. We want to walk you through some progress we're making on a couple of new projects in downtown. And if you're ready, I'll share my screen. Let me just say if I'm ready, perhaps. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Excellent.
I sure can.
Excellent, excellent. So quickly, what we're going to talk about today, a brief recap of the DDA values that drive the projects that we're working on, and an update on where things are going on two projects that are in the design and engineering phase, specifically Division Street and State Street. And within those two projects, we'll talk a little bit about materials and how those street designs might come together. And we're looking forward to getting input from you so that we can make it a better design for each and make them work for all. So with that, we'll keep rolling. So let's start with the shared values that the DDA board approved last July. As street improvement projects have been underway in the last several years, the projects keep coming back to several key elements that are driving the design. And so the staff thought it was important that the DDA board memorialize those and that these become the values that we use as a design team to evaluate the choices that we have in front of us. So very quickly, the 6 values include 1, building safe and comfortable downtown streets. 2, making the streets equitable with just access for all people. 3, making downtown affordable and inclusive community. 4, making our projects and downtown resilient, energy responsible, so that we are contributing to the larger city goals of reducing use of carbon and decreasing the use of automobiles. 5, I guess I'm on, is to support a vibrant and thriving local economy. Ann Arbor's lucky to have such a great, vibrant downtown, and these projects, we hope, support that. 6 is being responsible in our design and implementation so that the projects are going to last and that we have been not only designing responsibly, but also responsively. So we're responding to what the community is telling us. And then lastly, building a connected community with our downtown streets as civic space. So they're more than just places that people drive, they are our civic heartbeat. one key way that these ideals have been distilled down is the concept of economic development for all. And what we're looking at as a DDA and as the consultant team is building infrastructure that provides that foundation for economic activity. And some key parts of that are having safe and equitable access to social and economic opportunities downtown. So helping people get around and getting to jobs, getting to services, getting to the government center, etc. Secondly, having economic and demographic diversity downtown and encouraging that through street design. Third is improving resilience to significant climate and economic events. And then lastly, creating inclusive public spaces. So all of these elements, we believe, really point us towards building infrastructure that is a foundation for economic development, and that economic development should be for all of us. So in March, we had a series of online engagements with the public to help understand what people's priorities are and help introduce people to some ideas that the DDA has been considering and to get some feedback. And so some of the key things that we heard from the public during those sessions include building out the separated bike network. It was started, I think, most earnestly on the William Street project with the bikeway that was constructed there. And we heard loud and clear from the public that that work is important and that it should continue on Division and Miller and Catherine. Secondly, we heard that there's support for pursuing a curbless, flexible street design in core commercial areas. And in particular, we talked a lot about that being an appropriate response or approach in the State Street area. We're going to talk about curbless street design in more detail in a minute. So if you're confused by what that means, don't worry, we're going to get to it. Third, pursue opportunities to support downtown transit. We introduced a potential project along 4th Avenue that would expand the capacity of the rides, Blake Transit Center, in support of their efforts to provide services to the community and the surrounding communities. Fourth, we heard that there's an interest in restoring 5th and Division to two-way traffic. And you know that, or you may know that 1st and Ashley have been in the process of being restored from a one-way pair to 2 separate two-way streets. That's well underway, and construction is being close to being wrapped up. And even though the community hasn't experienced those streets as two-way, we're hearing a lot of enthusiasm for the idea and pushing that idea towards what could happen on 5th and Division. And then lastly, we heard from the public a lot of energy towards continuing to build on the partnerships between the DDA, the City of Ann Arbor, the RIDE, and the Housing Commission, so that projects are done in a collaborative fashion and it takes a more comprehensive view of providing better streets and a better downtown. So the projects that sort of bubbled up as being most important to the public include those that are on this map. And so the first project is one that was already underway and funded for State Street. And so State Street is being improved from William Street to Washington, and south of William Street, a new water main is being put in down to South University, and then on North University over to Fletcher Street. So that area is going to see a lot of action and construction, I should say, and people were supportive of that. The second project that people supported was the Division Street Bikeway, which was part of a pilot project in 2020 that was constructed as a response to the COVID epidemic and allowing people to get around more easily on bicycles and provide some more space for pedestrians. Again, community supported moving that forward towards a project that was actually built. A third one is the Miller and Catherine Bikeway, so very similar to Division in that regard. And then the fourth project that really came on strong was the one we talked about a few moments ago with 4th Avenue, down between Liberty and William in support of the Lake Transit Center. Other projects that are sort of on the future list because there's been interest discussed include South Main through downtown, North Main, and then, as I referenced before, the 5th and Division two-way restoration. So the two projects we're going to talk about today are State Street and Division because those are have found a way, have found funding through the DDA and support through the DDA board and are moving forward. So this calendar that's on the screen now is highlighting a number of the different projects, but specifically Division Street Bikeway, which is targeted to be under construction early August through the fall. And then State Street would be under construction in the spring of 2022. So less than a year from now. Miller and Catherine and 4th Avenue are likely to see construction coming up in the next several years, but have not been specifically authorized by the DDA board. Amber, am I getting all this right?
Yep, you're doing perfectly, Bob. And the only thing that I was going to add is the two projects that we are not talking about tonight, 4th Avenue and Catherine, which we'll have to come back and talk about at a later date. Those are our partnership projects with the Housing Commission. So in addition to the surface treatments, we are building the infrastructure to support their housing projects adjacent to those project areas.
Great, thanks. If we can pause now for a moment before we start talking about State Street and Division, if anyone has any questions on the big picture.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for them about this part of the presentation?
I guess more in the nature of a comment, which is, this is just one voice from the disabled community, but it often feels like there's an overemphasis on bicycling, which is not a fully accessible mode of transportation. So I just want to kind of flag that for future thought, future discussion. Yes, bicycling is a very positive development in many respects, but for many of us, some of us, it is not accessible. So I just want to foreground that it's very hard for me personally to get enthusiastic about bicycle-based projects because I know that they structurally exclude some members of our community. So I just want to just put that on your radar at this time.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I got a text if you heard the ding. I'm now going to turn the sound off. That's a great point, and I think that's worth considering as the DDA moves forward on projects. And I think it is an issue that they've been aware of, or it's a perspective that they're aware of, but it doesn't hurt to reiterate it and continue to talk about that.
Well, and just one quick comment, Bob, and to the rest of you as well. I really appreciate you presenting this to the commission because, of course, it keeps us, informed and abreast of what kind of plans are in place again for the future construction. Also considering, like you said, that first point, which is access to all. So, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, keep going. You can feel free to, you can ask questions as we go, of course, and as things come up, or you can hold your questions till the end. Either way was fine. In terms of State Street, as I referenced before, the water main project has a slightly broader scope going from, it's water main and road resurfacing. That will go from South University to Huron on State Street, and then on North University from State Street on the west to Fletcher Street on the east. The part that the DDA is most involved in is the area between Washington and William, which will be more of a full reconstruction. So the sidewalks will be reconstructed, and the road itself, and new lighting, landscape, furnishings, etc. Some of the goals that have come out of the discussions to date about State Street, and this list is continuing to evolve. Specific about State Street, though, include improving safety and accessibility and ease of navigation for all users. Secondly, prioritizing for pedestrians, especially given the high volume of pedestrian activity in the corridor. We have traffic counts from 2019, which indicate that there's anywhere from 7 to 10 times as many pedestrians walking through that area than there are vehicles. So we're trying to prioritize where most people are. Third is enhancing street lighting. There's some need of that. Fourth is accommodating bus and service truck access, because the State Street area doesn't have alleys behind it from which people can service the businesses and haul trash, etc. So that's happens on the street, and it needs to be accommodated. Fifth is supporting special events and street closures, as was done last summer to expand outdoor dining and retail sales. Sixth is in reflecting State Street's distinct character and context. It's a really unique place, right, nestled right in at the corner of the university's central campus, and it's a very vital area of downtown. Seventh is improving drainage and better managing stormwater. Eighth is creating more space for business activities, such as cafe dining and outdoor retailing. Ninth is providing more flexible curbside zones. So what we mean by that is the area that is currently being used for parallel parking. We'd like to be able to design the street in a way that those could be parallel parking, but they could also be pick up and drop off for meals or goods, and or could be transformed into outdoor dining areas. Next is repairing critical infrastructure and utilities, like the water main. And then lastly on this list to date is completing the bikeway link to North University from William. So there's a little segment there that's missing in connecting the bike lanes on North U with the bike lanes on William Street. So there are a lot of design variables that we're kicking around. Some of them are more foundational in terms of the decision-making process, and some of them are things that we have more alternatives in terms of choices to make. Some of the foundational elements include having a curbless versus a conventional street, and we'll have a discussion about that in a second. The roadway configuration itself and the geometry, and then the intersection control, so the signalization of the key intersections, including at Liberty and at North University in particular. Some of the layered things that we're really looking at, different alternatives, include materials, how we configure the curbs, how we light the street, and how we provide enhanced accommodations. So we're trying to design the street in a way that reinforces positive behaviors and slows cars down, promoting comfort and safety for all users, especially pedestrians, and reinforcing and expressing the character of the street, taking advantage of that unique place that it is. So let's talk about curbless streets. On the right-hand side of this slide are two images. The lower right image is showing what we mean visually when we say a curbless street. And then the upper right-hand image is showing a potential scenario for connecting the bikeway along the edge of the diag. But let's talk a little bit more about the curbless street. So the idea is that rather than have a 6-inch high curb, that you make the street flush, if you will, so that the sidewalk and the parking area and the travel lanes of the vehicles are at the same level, more or less. There are some distinct advantages to doing this, and we've been involved in several projects that have adopted this approach in downtowns. One rationale or value is that it reinforces the pedestrian focus. So it tends to result in slower vehicle speeds because the vehicle driver understands that they're not on a typical street anymore, that they don't conceptually own the street. It is a different kind of place. It offers the ability for more fluid movement between the curbside lane and the sidewalks. So if, for instance, on the image on the right, lower right, on the right-hand side of that sketch is showing an outdoor dining area in what would be the parking lane. And the advantage of a curbless street is that that can be done without a barrier. There's no curb to navigate in order for someone to get into the outdoor dining. This sort of approach better supports special events and street closures, and we're seeing a lot of interest in that, particularly over the last several years. And of course, we always have the art fair and events like that result in the closure of the street, but it gives you more flexibility in how you use the street. It better accommodates flexibility in the curbside lane, so you can use it for parking, use it for drop off, use it for picking up food, or you can use it for outdoor dining, or it could be used for retail sales. And then lastly, a feature of curbless design is that it just does create that different feeling of space and reinforce a unique identity and sense of place. But we need to do it. We've heard a lot of positive things about doing this type of project, but it has to be done very carefully so that it creates a safe environment for all, including those who have a visual impairment. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to help with those issues. On this slide, you're seeing 4 images of different streets that have been built as curbless. And their variation has to do with how you delineate the various use areas of the street. So on the upper right-hand image, you have a picture of a street that was built in 2017 in Midland, Michigan, which is curbless, but you see that the road itself, the driving lane, still remains asphalt. And that was based on the decision Midland made to clearly delineate where cars belong. But you also see that the parking lane is designed almost as an extension of the sidewalk. so that they can choose to not have parking there and use that space for other things. The picture on the upper left is Argyle Street in Canada, and you see the materials are fairly similar across from building face to building face, but there are some delineations. There's a dark strip of pavement that delineates where cars belong and where they don't belong. That's pretty similar to the image on the lower right, which is Argyle Street in Chicago, where again, you have a very rich base of paving. I think they're probably brick, but you see some delineation with concrete that says this is where the car belongs, this is where it doesn't. And then on the other end of things is Exhibition Road in London, where it's literally designed as a plaza from one building face to the other. And the navigation of the street becomes more negotiated, if you will. And what studies have indicated so far is that while that inherently or instinctively, not inherently, but instinctively feels less safe, it actually forces the driver of a vehicle to go at a very slow rate of speed and pay precise attention to what they're doing, and has resulted in some safety improvements in that regard. Let's keep going. So when we look at paving materials, we're going to be looking at a number of different alternatives and thinking about how do we delineate versus not so clearly delineate things. Obviously, one of our key component materials is poured concrete, but there's a lot of variation in how we can do poured concrete. You can have, it's the picture on the upper left shows exposed aggregate, which is where you essentially wash off the fine sand on top of it and you expose some of the stone that's in the concrete. It adds a little bit of texture, but it's still very smooth in terms of walkability. You don't have things popping up like you might if a brick pops out of place. But it adds a color and a texture difference. You can do other variations of looking at how you surface things. Some of the other images show more detailed scoring patterns, which again call attention to themselves, or a difference in the finishing. You can also put a colorant in concrete, which gives it a distinct color. And those colors can range anywhere from tans to reds to oranges to blues. The science of coloring concrete has made some interesting opportunities. Another potential way of looking at things is to go with unit pavers, like what we call a porous paver that allows the drainage to go through the paver. An example of that would be at City Hall. On the north side of City Hall, that little plaza drop-off area and the sidewalks are made of porous paving. And those are precast concrete units that sit on an aggregate bed. Another example of those recently was installed on Huron Street. So that's in the upper right. In the upper left is another approach, which is similar to what I talked about earlier, where you put a colorant in the concrete and then you can stamp it with different patterns, whether it's a brick or to look more like stone, just to add a little texture difference. And actually the picture here is at the parking deck on Forest Street, and this little plaza incorporates colored concrete as well as exposed aggregate concrete. And then another approach is to look at brick pavers. or concrete pavers. Over the last several years, the DDA's projects have really focused on making the area next to the buildings to be smooth concrete and to avoid putting a brick or a concrete paver next to the building. Now, the example shown on the left-hand picture is from either North Main Street or Washington. I believe this is probably Washington. Nope, it's North Main. I'm sorry, there's the broken egg. At that point, they put brick right up to the building. But sometimes that becomes an issue because if a brick comes out of place or it becomes slick because of ice, it's less desirable for people with mobility issues. And in fact, that's on the example from Midland. We had there was a assisted living facility in downtown, and the residents of the assisted living facility said, "Get rid of our bricks. We can't stand walking on them," because as the elderly just were having trouble navigating those brick. And so we went with an approach more like what Ann Arbor's been doing recently, again, putting smooth pavement up against the building. Another potential that we want to look at is a technique that's used in Europe and across Asia and starting to get some use in the United States, where we use a specific strip of tactile pavement, whether it's a change in texture or it's similar to the plates that are at intersections that have the texture to alert people they're entering an intersection. But in other countries, that approach is used to create a linear line along the or parallel to the building face, so that people with visual impairments can understand and follow where the sidewalk is. So let's take a quick break. That was State Street. We have a couple images on Division to show you, but State Street is really the core reason we're here. Are there any questions, thoughts, ideas that come out of the discussion?
Well, sure, Bob, for the interest of time, and I think what you're saying is very informative, but for the interest of time, what I'm going to do is say that, any commissioners or any viewers, watching this particular presentation, if you guys can provide your contact information so that those can reach out and ask you any questions, that would be appreciated. Also, we will need you to wrap up here in a few minutes, as we do have other presentations to get to today.
Thanks for that guidance, Zach. I should have asked before I started. I'm a very deliberate person. Sometimes, in other words, my wife would say slow.
I'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, very good. On Division, the bikeway that we're looking at runs from Catherine to Packard, as we talked about before. Some of the key, going the wrong way, sorry. Some of the key things we're looking at are intersection treatments to make sure that we can improve safety for all users. And we're looking specifically at Division in Catherine, Division in Ann, and Division in Packard to make sure that those end up being as safe as possible, including the new signalization. And then we're also looking at a treatment for Division that is a little bit different. This is an image for William Street. And what we're looking at is, rather than vertical bollards put in that buffer, of doing that actually of poured concrete. So it's a curbed protection buffer between the bike facility and the travel lane, if you will, for vehicles. Another key thing we're looking at is on the left image, which is providing a safe crossing and barrier-free crossing from the sidewalk to where the bus would pick people up. So this is showing that the bikes actually have a speed bump, if you will, to slow the bikes down. And at the same time, that provides for barrier-free crossing over to enter the bus. And we've been working with the ride on this and continue to work with the ride to make sure that we're getting it the way that their buses can adapt to it and use it as best as possible.
All right.
So I think that is actually the end of the presentation.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, and so sorry about that. It's just, we're running low on time, and we've got some other things to cover. But thank you so much, Bob, for that presentation, and Amber and all of you for the hard work that you're doing. And I encourage commissioners and those watching to reach out with questions or comments, and Denise, if you can go about just getting some of their information, and if you guys don't mind, if commissioners reach out to you with comments or feedback on this particular presentation, I'm sure others would have some comments or questions, and we would appreciate that.
That would be welcome.
Please do reach out to us.
Can we send you a version of the presentation so that it can be distributed to the commissioners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Send that to Denise, maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just send that on over to Denise, Bob, and then Denise, if you don't mind sending that to the rest of the commissioners.
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. And we can review that and give back any feedback or comments that we have. So.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Well, next on our agenda, we have Katie Monkevich for the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Good to see you all. Just a couple of things today. All AADL locations are currently open for contactless pickup by appointment. I did attend a meeting yesterday where we were told that we're hoping to open fully this summer. So coming up shortly, but deliberately, I suppose. But more details are coming soon. So stay tuned on that. We have a board meeting next week, and then we expect that there'll be a more formal announcement. But for now, you can use our high-speed internet, excuse me, at Mallett's Creek, Westgate, Traverwood, and Pittsfield outside the buildings 24 hours a day, no login or library card required. If you're missing browsing the shelves, we can do it for you. Tell us about what you're looking for, and we'll pull a selection of available titles in those formats and topics. Just fill out the form at aadl.org/shelf service. We have printing services available. Fill out the form to have something printed at aadl.org/printing. You can submit something for posting on our branch bulletin boards at bulletinboards@aadl.org. You can book a Zoom meeting room for up to 2 hours and 300 attendees by emailing bookazoom@aadl.org. And if you have an essential task online or need help filling out any of the online forms for our library service, but you don't have a computer or a way to access the internet, we may be able to help. Call 734-327-4200 to get started. All right, programming. We are taking a little breather as we stop to plan for summer. Check out the archives that we have on YouTube. Stay tuned to AADL TV for new content coming soon. We do have one special event later this month. It's the Ann Arbor Synth Expo presents Amanda Sewell on Wendy Carlos. That's Saturday, May 22nd from 2 to 3 p.m. After a meteoric rise to fame with 1968's Switched On Bach, composer Wendy Carlos retreated from the public eye. A transgender woman, she chose to release more albums under her male birth name for over a decade. After a very public disclosure of her transition in 1979, Carlos was briefly back in the spotlight. Since then, her relationship with journalists and scholars has been tenuous. Her fans haven't fared much better. None of her music is available on streaming platforms, and she aggressively guards her copyright on YouTube. Join Amanda Sewell, music director at Interlochen Public Radio, as she discusses Wendy Carlos, her work, and her legacy in the music industry today. She will also discuss some of the challenges of writing a biography about someone who would rather maintain complete control over how they and their music are viewed by the public. And as for materials, WLBPD patrons can order digital cartridges by calling 734-327-4224 and leaving a message, or emailing WLBPD@aadl.org. It's always a great time to sign up for the Braille and audio reading download service, BARD. WLBPD patrons can sign up at nlsbard.loc.gov or call us and we can assist with the application. Some titles just recently added to BARD are The Beauty of Living Twice by Sharon Stone, memoir of an actress and human rights advocate famous for her roles in films like Basic Instinct. While she describes her childhood and highlights from her career, much of the memoir focuses on the massive stroke she suffered in 2001 and her struggles to rebuild her life afterwards. Gold Diggers by Sanjina Sathian. Neil Narayan is an underachieving second-generation teenager growing up in the Bush-era Atlanta suburbs. He can't seem to be successful like his sister or his best friend Anita, but Anita has a secret to her success, and it involves stolen jewelry and alchemy. How to Think Like a Roman Empire, The Stoic Philosophy Marcus Aurelius. The Stoic Philosophy of Marcus Aurelius by Donald Robertson. An exploration of the life and philosophy of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the final famous Stoic philosopher of the ancient world. The author examines Aurelius's progression from a young noble through his reign as emperor, laying out how he applied his philosophical doctrines and therapeutic practices in his own life. That's it for me today. Does anybody have any questions?
Awesome stuff. Really, really neat stuff. And had no idea about that about Sharon Stone. Very fascinating.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct, one of my favorites. So.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie.
You're welcome. You all have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Moving on. Usually, folks, we do have Alex report on the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living. He is not with us today. Denise, did he send anyone from the AACIL to report today or no?
No, he hasn't.
Okay, no problem. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next presentation then. Rachel Hawkins and Community Engagement and Ann Arbor Inclusive.
You're muted.
Sorry. Okay, I think you can hear me now. My apologies. So I just wanted to first follow up about Ann Arbor Inclusive. So they have a upcoming show. Just need to pull this up. My apologies. I was anticipating Alex being there. So their show that they had just done in April was with New Oakland Center. We do have a link for that show on YouTube. If that's something that you would like to see, I can send that to Denise and we can include it in the minutes. The show for May is still to be announced. In terms of their future plans, they're going to be having Easter Seals in Michigan on an upcoming episode. During the summer, they're going to be taking a summer break from interviews for June and July, and then they're going to be rerunning past episodes. I'm not certain which episodes yet for the past episodes. So that's what's going on. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you, Rachel, for your work with the Community Engagement Committee and also being our middle person for Ann Arbor Inclusive. And thank you to CTN, Linda Evans, Tom Hoatland, and all the great people over there doing great work. Thank you. All right. So next, we would have Alex report on the Partners and Access Committee Larry, is there any report on the PAA committee at this time? Did you and Alex meet or no?
Commissioner Keeler, you're muted.
Yeah, here I am. No, I missed the meeting. I forgot all about it. So I don't think it happened because I think Alex was the only one there.
Okay.
I don't know. I usually don't miss them, but for some reason I got busy and oh no, and I got home, looked at my computer and saw Denise's message there. So nope, no meeting.
All right. Well, understand, no problem. I'm sure you can regroup for this next meeting.
We will.
Wonderful. Well, and then Larry, I've got to bug you again because you're up next for recruiting activity.
Nothing there either, actually. I mean, it seems like I've been lazy as all get out, but I haven't been out, haven't heard anything about any new applicants or anything.
All right.
But I am waiting to do this.
All right.
So.
Sure. All right. Next, we have Tim Hall with the Transportation Commission update.
Well, the last meeting was actually before the previous meeting of this commission because it was actually like a day earlier than it usually would be due to the joint meeting with the Planning Commission. The next meeting is, in fact, tonight, though, and there's a few things on the agenda, including vote recommend updates to the personal mobility ordinance, which includes scooters as well as like bikes and anything that you ride that isn't considered a motor vehicle by the state of Michigan, basically. And also some updates on the Healthy Street Committee, and we're going to vote to recommend to support a bill in the state legislature to allow driver's license for undocumented immigrants. That's also on the agenda. So that, I guess, is coming up tonight. But all right, I guess that's all I have to say because the meeting, I already gave you updates on the last meeting.
Absolutely, Tim. And, thank you so much again for your information and for your work on the Transportation Commission. And, let us know, if there's additional input that you would like from the commission on the personal mobility ordinance. I'm curious to know if that would also include electronic wheelchairs and things like that. But thank you very much. All right. Moving forward, we have Kathleen with the U of M Council for Disability Concerns meeting update.
Hello, everyone. So when I saw how long the meeting was running, I went ahead and I sent to Denise a copy of everything that I'm going to talk about, because in that copy, there are links and a lot more information than what I can possibly share at this time. I do want to share that we did have an opening quotation, which I thought was really important and speaks highly to me. If back to normal means revoking accessibility measures in a post-pandemic world, I'd rather keep it weird, by Carly Drew. And I completely agree with that. Our meeting, we talked about our October planning. The council has been invited to work with the Office of DEI, Disability Culture at U of M and others to develop programming based on the Student Idea Board. The Student Idea Board is an ad hoc committee that makes recommendations for improving lives of students with disabilities at the university. Disability Month is always in October, so they combine those two. And they're also working on the Neubacher Award. We've received a lot of critical feedback in response to how the awards were conducted and handled. And so those have been rewritten with regards to the criteria and instructions for nominations. And that process is going to begin this year, and it will be presented in October. And then the final thing is we met with the co-chairs of the WISE committee. WISE stands for Workplace Innovation and Staff Experience. They were formed in June of 2020 at the request of the provost and other staff members, and they met through November of 2020. And just to highlight a few things, the committee was tasked with rethinking about how staff might experience the university and how the work might change during the pandemic. And so it was intentionally broad. It represented all the campuses, Ann Arbor, Dearborn, and Flint. It intentionally was weighted more towards staff versus management because they wanted more leadership, less leadership, and to ensure that the experiences of staff were heard. They were asked for 2 deliverables, short-term recommendations in that what are the immediate needs for staff for the fall of 2020, which has already happened, and then what are long-term recommendations, thinking beyond the pandemic, what could work look like when the pandemic is over. And in total, the committee came up with 108 recommendations. Those recommendations have been given to the, what do I want to say? The higher ups. The committee has no, they're recommendations, they're not mandates, and they have no control over how the higher ups want to handle that. One of the critical things that we noticed as a council, though, and we were questioning, was the extent of the disabled perspective in their research to in information gathering, and what were those recommendations. And they said that they did not actively consider the disabled perspective, that it didn't come to the forefront of the conversation, but they did try to use the diversity lens because they did use the DEI and all of that. There's so much more to share. So I highly encourage you to be on the lookout for that email from Denise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And again, we appreciate all of your work and the work of the Council for Disability Concerns, doing great work over there. And you bring up a lot of great points. So thank you. I will definitely review that. I hope all of us can, and keep up the great work. All right. Moving forward, we have Denise with the City Personnel Report.
Yes, before I start, can I ask Commissioner Hawkins to inform us where she is remotely?
Oh, yes, that's important.
Yes.
It's just a background. It's a photo from Arizona, from Tucson, that I liked. So I'm not actually anywhere.
No, I mean, you have to say remotely that you're from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought you meant my background. I got confused. No, from Ann Arbor, Michigan as well.
Sorry about that, Rachel. There's just a new protocol now. So
yes,
every time we do roll call, or if somebody joins, we have to say where we're joining from remotely in terms of city, county, and or state.
Okay. Yeah. I think I missed that bit at the beginning. I was like, everyone likes my background. This is
and cool. I like that too.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks,
sure, no problem. Personnel update. Courtney Cock, Ann Arbor Housing. These are welcome people, new hires. Courtney Cock, Ann Arbor Housing Commission Administrative Assistant. Christina Hudson, Ann Arbor Housing Commission Facilities Maintenance Technician. Edward Sharp II, Public Works Technician. Retiree, farewell to Jeffrey Pelzek, Deputy Fire Marshal, and Douglas Sandel, Public Works Technician. That's it for me.
All right. Well, congratulations on those retirement, and welcome to all the new city personnel. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Next, we have the chair report. And I have to say, folks, you know, there isn't very much as of this very moment, but I did want to report, and thank you to Denise for this, but we are putting up the parking map, the accessible parking map for the city that was discussed in a inquiry that we had about some individuals that were having trouble locating accessible parking around the city. So I'm excited to announce that that information will actually be on our page and the disability resource page so that everyone can have access to that and utilize that. Other than that, that's really the big news that I have for the chair report at this time. I wanted to open it up to any old business or new business or announcements at this time. All
Commissioner Mozak.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what you said about that, because I had promised to get you the PDF last time. And so there is no PDF. It's actually a really cool interactive map. So you can expand and contract and actually look at individual parking. So I think that's much more helpful, but it's also sad because if people want to make a copy of it, it's no longer in PDF form.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for mentioning that. And hopefully there's a way where, again, all about access, right? Where those can access that and be able to utilize it. But if they need a copy to know for reference, yeah, that's interesting. So thank you, Kathleen. All right.
Excuse me, Chair Zach, the map is on the webpage, on the website.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. All right. So now, is there any announcements at this time that anyone would want to bring up? I think all of you are doing great work, and I appreciate all of your patience. If there are not at this time, you guys, then I'll just move to our final point before the adjournment, which is, will we be meeting in person for June or through Zoom? And I wanted to ask, what all of you feel comfortable with. Kathleen, you had mentioned a very interesting quote. I can't remember the exact wording of it at this time, but keeping it weird in terms of being as safe as possible. I think for the interest of our commission and being as responsible and safe as possible in doing best practices, it may be fine to meet for Zoom in June. I think that most people now hopefully are a little bit used to the routine. But if you guys have a passion to want to see each other in the City Hall council chambers, you're free to sort of say your piece, if you will. But I think it's safe and best practice to meet over Zoom until notified otherwise. Denise, do you know, is there a timetable as of yet? Are people meeting in person now, or is the general consensus still meet virtually?
Yes, I have not received any notification that has changed. We are still on for virtual meetings, and City Hall is still closed at the present time.
Okay, understood.
I would propose that next month we meet like this, and since June and July and August we have off, we check and see what we can do in September then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Larry. I definitely agree with that. Does the rest of the commission agree with that in terms of just meeting virtually for next month's meeting? And then from there, once we have our summer break, if you will, kind of reevaluating where things are. By the way, I want to commend all of you just for being present and staying safe at the same time, throughout all of this. I'm very grateful for all of your help and all of your support. And but I agree with that, Larry. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, yeah, just do the virtual thing in June and see, if all the other commissions are back in person and city council's back in person, it might make sense to just go back in person in September. But
yeah,
I don't think it makes sense to be the first, though.
Right. Understood. So yeah, we'll just kind of evaluate and see how things go in terms of safety. We definitely want to make sure that all of us stay safe, and so that'll be the plan. We'll see you next month over Zoom, and then after that particular meeting, we have some time off. So I hope you guys can enjoy the warmer weather, get some great sun, maybe have a margarita or something. Am I allowed to do that? Sorry, folks. But maybe just enjoy a nice cold lemonade, if you will, and enjoy the sunshine and good weather. So
absolutely.
Yeah. The other factor is the emergency declaration of the county that is actually required to be able to hold virtual meetings, because if they lift that, then we basically have to go back in person.
Okay, understood.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Denise, if anything like that happens and the city does lift any sort of anything like that, if you could let us know, that would be, that would be great. I know that unfortunately Councilwoman Nelson didn't join us today, but I'm sure if she hears anything as well, maybe she can let us know also. But that's a good point, Tim. If any policies that are in place right now do change, then
Yeah.
that's something that affects us as well. So, yeah, hopefully both Councilwoman Nelson as well as yourself, Denise, if you guys, as city staff, hear anything like that, please let us know.
Oh, sure. As soon as I have any notification, I will send it out to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, with that, you guys, I know we went a few minutes over, and I appreciate all of your patience. Matthew, did you have something? You're shaking your head.
I just want to clarify, in my understanding, this meeting goes from 4 to 6. Am I mistaken, or?
Yes, it can do that. In our bylaws that we set a few years ago, it can go till 6.
Oh, well then technically we're still on time. That's great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. No problem then. And I appreciate you guys letting me know of that. That gives us some extra wiggle room.
Yes.
So thank you. But thank you, all of you. You guys are a wonderful dream team. I really appreciate all of you and the work and commitment you guys are doing. And I hope you know that I think the work we are doing is worthwhile. And do not hesitate to reach out to me or Denise for anything. And I'll continue to try and do a better job every time and the best job every time that I can. So you guys are great. And thank you so much. And thank you to CTN and the City of Ann Arbor. And we'll see you next